Okay, good morning, and I am going to share my screen. Okay, so today the topic that is being focused on is finding beauty. And when I was first asked, like, oh, would you want to share on this topic? I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds really cool. And then as it got closer and closer to the Sunday, I was like, where am I finding beauty? That's the question I had to um, ask myself to figure out. Um, And so, what I, in my own life, as I was thinking about it, have been finding the challenge in is to find beauty in different small moments um, that keep me grounded. So, I'm going to share a little bit of my experience finding beauty in the present moment and hope that it blesses you. So, today, going to focus on a verse within Psalm 46, but I did want to read the whole psalm. So we're going to go through that today in our different slides. God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. So we will not fear when earthquakes come and the mountains crumble into the sea. Let the oceans roar and foam. Let the mountains tremble as the waters surge. A river brings joy to the city of our God, the sacred home of the Most High. God dwells in that city, it cannot be destroyed. From the very break of day, God will protect it. The nations are in chaos and their kingdoms crumble. God's voice thunders and the earth melts. The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. The God of Israel is our fortress. Come, see the glorious works of the Lord. See how he brings destruction upon the world. He causes wars to end throughout the earth. He breaks the bow and snaps the spear. He burns the shields with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be honored by every nation. I will be honored throughout the world. The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. The God of Israel is our fortress. This psalm um, I always think of that particular verse, be still and know that I am God. And that's where I'm going to spend much of this time focusing through that kind of lens. Um, I also, when I think about this verse, it's one that I often come to um, because I often don't feel very still. And when I think about be still and know, I know the verse says to know that I am God. But then what I often feel challenged as in that verse is also acknowledging that I am not God. And sometimes I have a trouble of figuring out, okay, how do I be still? How do I be present in this moment, even when I feel pushed and pulled? And oftentimes I try to distract myself. Um, because especially a reminder that to be still and to know that God is God also makes me think of, oh, I am not in control. And how do I stay still grounded even when I'm not in control? We're now in the season of Lent. That's not a season that I kind of grew up with in the church, but it's one that I've enjoyed learning about. And it is that 40 day season leading up to Easter and resurrection. And in that, there's a lot of focus on that waiting for Jesus to come and just that awareness of that. And it starts in a lot of different traditions with an understanding that I am created from dust, I am made from dust. Um, and then sometimes I think that can be a depressing thing to focus on. Um, and sometimes I try to run away from that. I try to run away from my thoughts, fears, and emotions and different things. But in that sitting still, when I'm intentionally aware, um, I can be that, I can have this beauty in that I am created and that God is here with me in these different steps and different moments of being created. And I've been given the advice by different people over the past few months of when I am still, a way to like ground myself is to focus on all of my different senses. Someone even said, use all of your senses every day. And I feel like that is a no brainer of like, I'm always using all of my senses at every moment, but I'm not always conscious of um, what I'm seeing, what I'm smelling. I'm not sitting there and to be still and to know. And I also thought about in these verses in Psalm 46, how much of the beauty of the Psalms and a lot of different scriptures is that it calls us to remember how we are created and how creation is fully beautiful. Just to go back to those things, there's so much that you can tell in our senses. We're hearing and feeling this earthquake rumbling. The mountains are crumbling and splashing into the sea. We can hear the oceans roar, see it foam. There's so much of this beauty in the sense of things are happening. We can actually feel these words telling us what is going on. And there's so much roaring, there's so much chaos. Um, Around us. And then we come to the end of the psalm and it says, be still and know that I am God. And I think in some ways, what I've been learning is that be still is just to say, yes, God, I hear these things. These are things happening and you're here with me in that moment. So I'm just going to share a few things that I have kind of how I go through this practice and where I've found beauty in that. So first, what do I see? Um, Sometimes, usually I'm trying to do this practice of being in touch with my senses while I'm sitting at my desk, off to in this little alcove behind me, while I'm working from home. And usually I have to take a moment where I'm like, okay, I've been staring at a screen for so long, I need to look at something else. And so oftentimes in that moment, I'm just looking at, there's a pink curtain in front of the window. So sometimes I just look at that and I just notice this is a curtain, this is pink. There's this cotton fabric, just to orient myself of this is what I'm seeing in this moment, to take a moment to recognize that. And then a few weeks ago, I took a moment to actually go out and to visit the botanical gardens and took a bunch of different pictures of the things that I was seeing that most resonated with me. And then a few days later, made this collage. I realized I was especially noticing all the greens and the pinks. I used to not like the color pink at all. And for some reason now I really like it. And a lot of my apartment has pink, and these are the things I've noticed. So this is what I've seen, where I've seen beauty, that I've taken a moment to search out what do I find beautiful in front of me. And even sometimes in the moment, it can be what do I literally see in front of me that reminds me there's beauty in front of me, even if it's as small as just the curtain over my window. So what do I hear? This is when I'm at my desk. Sometimes I take a moment when it's quiet and I can hear the people outside talking. I can hear the birds. I don't know if it got picked up on the microphone, but there was just a train off in the distance, so I could hear that clattering. So those are oftentimes where when I take a moment, I just hear all these things around me, and just I'm thankful for, okay, God, here I am, and you're with me, and I can be still and know that you are with me. And some of the things I just put a picture of, I've also, while I was doing a lot of chores and different things, was also listening to this audio book, Hamnet, which is it's kind of that's where I was finding beauty as well. Kind of got back into my love of books and literature, and this one calls on um, the example of Shakespeare and how he was inspired to write his play Hamlet after the tragic death of his son, Hamnet. So that was just something I had in the background playing that I could just listen to and orient myself. And then also wanted to just share just a little clip um, as well. When I was in the botanical gardens, some of the piece of it was just being able to stand there and just to listen what was going on. So this is just the sound of the water playing in the background. And so there was such a sense of peace of being able to hear that. And I did want to acknowledge as well, I recently watched a movie. It's not The Sound of Music, it's called The Sound of Metal. And I think it's recently been getting some buzz for different, what do you call that? Awards and different things. In it, the character is starting to lose his hearing. So he has to learn a different way to be interacting with his senses and still be present. And that was kind of my takeaway from that movie is he's still learning how do I be present even when some of his senses are changing. So I just wanted to acknowledge, even as I'm thankful to have all my five senses, I think there's still a way God connects with us even when we're going through different things where we might not be able to connect to all of those senses. So what do I smell? What do I taste? So when I'm in my office, sometimes that's harder to connect to because like if I'm just sitting there, there's something that if I take a moment to like, oh, do I have this sense of things? What am I tasting? Sometimes I have to go and I have a thing of mints near me. So I put that in my mouth so I can be like, okay, I'm here. I have the mint near me. I was at the grocery store and recently and saw some eucalyptus, so just for a couple dollars, I got a few things and put it in there so I could smell it when I'm like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. Let me just sit here and see where I'm at. If I could get some tea, then I can smell the beautiful scent of the tea and then taste it. And then I had the experience of, I tried this recipe that I found on YouTube. And I don't know why, but I don't often cook with just like chicken thighs and chicken legs. And that's what I did when I did this recipe. And it transported me back to my mom's house when she's cooking chicken and just that smell that's coming off of the pan as it's browning. It kind of made me feel like I was comforted and like a 5-year-old back at home. So those are some pieces where I was finding beauty and just appreciated that. And lastly, what do I feel? I try to think of what can I show visually. So this is a picture of me when I was in college in 2012. And sometimes when I'm in my office and I need to find a moment to connect with God, it's literally, okay, what do I have in my hand? Sometimes it's either just, what does this feel like to move my fingers together against my palm to know that I am created and I am feeling in this moment that I am here. Or sometimes it might be, I have something in my hand. I think here, I don't know if I was crocheting or knitting something. And it was probably a project that I started. And as often happens, I don't finish it because I have no idea what that was being made into. But sometimes of like just sitting in that moment and having something that I can feel. But what I also noticed in this picture is a lot of times I have to remember I carry a lot of tension in my shoulders. I'm always having them up near my ears, and sometimes I just sit there and remind myself, "Ooh, you're really tense," and to let that let that go. And so those are the pieces where I've slowly just been saying, God is here with me in these moments. And I've been finding beauty and just, okay, let me remember to be present, to be still and know. And so just and to close with that, I wanted to go through a quick breath prayer. And this is literally to feel our breath going, to know that we are created and that God has this breath in our lungs. And to do this breath prayer, I'm going to say inhale, and we're going to inhale together. And at the top of that inhale, we're just going to say be still. And then I'm going to say exhale, and I'm going to exhale. And at the end of that exhale, I'm going to say, and know that I am God. And this is just a way to orient ourselves and just to be thankful that God is with us and that I can take these moments, we can all take these moments to just recognize that. So if you all would pray with me, we're going to inhale, be still, exhale, and know that I am God. Inhale, be still, exhale, and know I am God. So if you ever do need to take more moments, you can find other scriptures and do this with, but just wanted to leave that with you guys. That's where I've been finding beauty. And and want to have that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and gonna have that kind of orient us to check in with Ron next to see where he's finding beauty.
Okay, am I on now? Well, starting with a question, did you know that the story Beauty and the Beast was in the Bible? I got a concordance and looked at the first occurrence of beauty in the Bible. And I want to use that story as the basis. And it's in Genesis 12, 10 to 20. You can just listen because it is a familiar story. It occurs just immediately after God calls Abraham. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while. Because the famine was severe. And as he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. There's beauty. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Right. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that Sarai was an unbelievably beautiful woman. And when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife, Sarai. So Pharaoh summoned Abraham. What have you done to me? He said. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go. Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. Strange story, strange interchange. Well, this is an ancient story. Abraham lived approximately 2000 BC. That means this story occurred 4,000 years ago. So that's why it's ancient. We know other stories that are also old, at least older than our grandparents, that we tell our children. In these stories, someone, often a poor damsel in distress, is rescued by a brave young man who turns out to be a handsome prince. They get married and live happily ever after. Cinderella, Snow White, you can add your favorite. The problem is we place this story pattern on the biblical story. Sarah is the damsel in distress. Because of her beauty, she is about to be captured and become an extra wife of Pharaoh. She is rescued by the lie of her prince, Charming, and they live happily ever after. Not quite. She becomes part of Pharaoh. She becomes part of Pharaoh's harem. The story is not following the pattern that we're used to. It's not what we expected. No, Abraham is the person in distress. He's going to be killed so that Pharaoh can take his wife. He lies to save his wife. He's saying she's my sister. Now, she really was his half sister, But I'm calling this a lie because he was really hiding the real truth that she was his wife. He's going to be killed so that Pharaoh can take his wife. He lies. The lie is the intent to deceive. So Pharaoh takes Abraham's beautiful wife to his own bedroom. Pharaoh steals Sarah, his wife. The damsel in distress is not saved at all. The lie only saved Abram, not Sarah. Abram is a selfish scoundrel. We better read the story again. Everything seems to have gone wrong. God surprises us with the real story. The beautiful damsel is almost 80 years old. She does not get rescued. Her prince is a villain. He tries to deceive the Pharaoh by sacrificing his wife to save himself. The villain is Abram. He's a liar. He's a deceiver. The hero is who? The hero is Pharaoh in the story. Why did you not tell me the truth? Now the pieces all fit together, but they don't fit the classic model that we were expecting. And we often happen reading an account in the Bible, a story, if you will. We know who the good guys are. We know who the bad guys are. But sometimes we get them wrong. I'm saying the villain is Abraham. The prince is Pharaoh. This is God's story, not the fairy story, the fairy tale. So I'd ask, what is the most beautiful thing in the story? The most beautiful thing here is that the grain fields of Egypt compared to the parched ground of Canaan? Is it the Pharaoh in his luxurious palace compared to the dusty shepherd tents? The narrator says that Sarah was beautiful compared to 90-year-old Abraham, perhaps. Remember, she was 80. I suggest the real beauty in the story was not Sarai, but truth. Beauty is usually something that differs from the ordinary in a way that brings us pleasure. In the biblical narrative, the ordinary is falsehood, a lie, deceit. The beautiful is truth. The ordinary is denying your guilt. The beautiful is accepting responsibility. It has always been so. In the beginning of the biblical narrative, the serpent plants the seed of doubt in Eve's mind with the suggestion of a lie. If you disobey, you die. Did God really say that? The Bible ends in the new paradise, from which are excluded all those who practice lies. Revelation 21:8. Lies appear to be a serious problem. Jesus said, "The truth will set you free." So the beauty in our story today is that lies do not get rewarded. If you lie, you get burned. And I call this beauty because that is one element on which our community depends. It depends on trust. If I cannot trust your word and you cannot trust my word, we cannot communicate. Jesus said in John, "You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there's no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. One other verse from the end of the Bible, Revelation 22:14. Blessed are those who wash their robes, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may go through the gates into the city. Outside are the dogs, those who practice magic arts, the sexually immoral, the murderers, the idolaters. They keep growing in this scope of these terrible people. And everyone who loves and practices falsehood. The beauty in our story this morning comes from the ugly stated by Pharaoh. Why did you tell me a lie? It is repeated in the last place. Liars are excluded from paradise. So for me, that's beauty. In Carlsbad, had spent several years contacting a person who was in jail at the time when I first knew him. And got out of jail and was living with us for a while. But he had a problem with telling the truth. It was part of his life and didn't realize what it was doing to him. I didn't know when to believe him, to trust him, to say what, to affirm what he was saying. That wasn't very beautiful. But when we can trust each other, we can hear each other, we can speak the truth to each other. That's beautiful. Thanks to God for this account of the beauty of truth. May we show beauty today. Shall we pray? Dear God, we err. We go astray. We sin. We sin when we try to convince someone else of something that we know is not real, is not true, is not trustworthy. Help us to be true to each other. Help us to see the beauty of truth today and in our lives and community this week. Help us to be truthful. Amen. Next.
That's me. So when I was first asked to speak, I definitely did not want to do this, but I decided to take a page from my husband's playbook. So when asked to just go ahead and be obedient. So recently I was on TikTok, and I know I am too old to be on TikTok. And for those of you who don't know what TikTok is, it is a social media platform in which you can share quick video clips. I am on TikTok because I am a social media manager as part of my job. So it's my job to stay on trends and to use them or not use them, or just be aware. One of the filters on this app will take half of your face and mirror it, and then take the other half of your face and mirror it. And the whole goal is to show whether your face is symmetrical or not. We know that the scientific approach to beauty is based on symmetry or a math equation. And so that's how the world defines beauty. So when I was young, I was obsessed with beauty. From magazines to, I'm sorry, I realize we are recording and this is not in the view to see me. Hold on just a second. Hey, Matt.
It's because you're the one speaking.
Oh, okay. I'm good.
You should be good. Yeah.
I think it's recording this way though.
Just
Okay, I'm just gonna go. So when I was young, I was obsessed with beauty, advertisements, products. I wanted it all. I wanted to be beautiful. I wanted to be beautiful so bad that I prayed for beauty as a young child. I was convinced by clever marketing and just loved magazines, wanted the worldly view of beauty. So it should be not a surprise that my favorite biblical story starts with a young, beautiful woman named Hadassah, who then becomes Queen Esther. Sure, the story has themes of bravery and righteousness and so on, but I was most compelled with the beauty regimens that she had to go through. The Bible tells us that she spent 1 year preparing herself with essential oils and perfumes prior to her being able to meet the king. And I was so interested in what exactly this was that me and a good friend of mine came up with a whole business plan based off of these, based off of a beauty regiment. And we were going to name our spa/storefront House of Esther. So Esther spent 1 year of beauty regiments, 1 year in beauty regiments, and we all have spent, but I have spent the last year giving the illusion of beauty through Zoom. Depending on Zoom to give my optical illusions. So whether it was dressing half up, smoothing my hair back, just putting a little bit of color on my lips. The video camera is very forgiving. So it is no surprise that COVID has been a struggle for us all, but it has been a struggle for me as someone who deals with depression and anxiety. I knew that I had to have a routine to combat feeling alone and isolated. So what I did for myself was I bought flowers. I got lots of candles. When it was safe, I went out and I got my nails done. And I actually got my nails done so much that I have ruined my nails. So working from home has been a stressor, and being a kindergarten teacher has also been a stressor. I have found it hard to find beauty in this past year, but I truly believe that God has us experience this time of uncomfort to experience Him. As I prepared to speak, I just kept asking myself, like Faith, how do I find beauty in this time that is so isolating? And this time actually reminds me of a time when I was isolated and I found it hard to see the beauty in my situation. 8 years ago, we were pregnant with Preston, and we went in for a regular routine ultrasound. And at that ultrasound, it was determined that my body was no longer, was not holding the pregnancy. And that it was actually a miracle that they caught my body prior to this phenomenon leading to birth. So they admitted me right away. And they put me in the hospital. They put me in a position to try to keep me pregnant. And we thought we had weeks, and we actually only had 5 days. So we had, after he was born, we had lots of support. We had lots of people who were there. Matt was with me for quite some time, but then Matt had to go to work and I was at the hospital alone. One morning I had breakfast on the patio and the sun was shining so bright on my face. It was so bright that I couldn't open my eyes. And I started to weep. Okay, really, it was ugly crying. I don't think it was that gentle as a weep, but it was an ugly cry, complete with snot and I'm sure noise, and it was not pretty. But there I was, knowing that I was in the presence of God and that he was protecting us and that he was watching over us and that he was keeping us safe. And I felt aligned with God. And therefore, in that moment, I must have been beautiful. So scientists have determined that beauty lies in the symmetry of your facial features. But I have found that beauty lies with your alignment to God. So how do I find beauty? I find it in the sun. So in closing, I would like to read a scripture from Numbers 6, 24 through 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.